Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Infernal Intercourse with Marella Sands and Pastor Brian.
Hello.
And today we want to be talking about Eve and Eden and how that shows up in the show in season 4. So I'll throw it out to Brian for some initial thoughts.
It's so funny. We just talked, and it just occurred to me for the first time that, of course, we're laughing at people reading Genesis 2 and taking it literally. But of course, this story has to take it literally, right, for Lucifer to work. So it just occurred to me how amusing that is to me. But I kind of rolled my eyes when it's like, okay, here comes Eve and blah, But I actually really enjoyed her, and she's a party girl, and I like that. It's funny though, I'm real sex positive and all those things, and the whole weird orgy scenes and stuff that follow as a result of her being there, though, I don't know, that just got like a boring trope to me. And I think just in general, Lucifer's personality disappears, which, they talk about that. And that's part of the problem. But in the middle of her arc there, I kind of get a little bored with it. But then, right about the time she got interesting, she walks off. So,
Yeah, so we do have her sort of playing the temptress character where I guess we're bringing up where she tempted, Adam with the fruit, right? So here she's tempting Lucifer, though not with fruit, but with his old lifestyle, right? Let's go back to all the drugs and the sex and the alcohol and the partying or whatever. And she even encourages him to hurt people, right? Because he's not going to kill that dude, and she's encouraging him to do it. And I don't kill him, but I snap his spine, I believe. So he ends up paralyzed because, basically because Eve goaded Lucifer into it, and he gave in. So she's bringing back all those self-destructive things that he's spent all this time kind of getting over. And it takes him a while to kind of say, hey, you know what? I don't like who I am when I'm with you. You have to go.
Because that's the bedrock. That's the bedrock of his character, right? The moral sense that he has developed through his role in hell, so yeah, for him to, well, we talked about consent before, and so obviously hurting someone is a no-no for Lucifer, and yet, she really gets him to that dark place.
Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of funny that she spent all this time, I guess, in heaven, and yet she's the one sort of tempting him to be darker, right? So you think maybe she wouldn't have gone to heaven originally, because she doesn't seem like such a nice girl in some ways. But on the other hand, she's very charming and she's sweet. And I do like that we don't end up with a love triangle with her. Like, it's not her and Chloe fighting over Lucifer. Chloe's like, she's an old flame of yours. Maybe she's really good for you, or she's wrong on that. But, there's no competition between the women.
Yeah.
Because that's a kind of a boring trope, too, when you see that. Unless you can do it in an interesting way. And I know Joss Whedon says the smallest number of people in a love triangle is 5, because you want to try to make it more interesting and have more drama and more conflict. But I think it's really hard to make that particular trope more interesting. So I'm glad they just decided to avoid it and have the women like each other, Yeah.
Well, I also love that they didn't do the tired, it's Eve's fault, right? Like, Eve tempted Adam, I like that they didn't really go into that either, because that's, again, something that just doesn't correspond to our understanding of, how things work.
Lucifer to be a bad boy.
Right, but she doesn't tempt Adam. They're not talking about, original sin being Eve, right?
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I don't even know if they talk about original sin.
I don't think they bring it up, no. So
which is good, because I don't believe in original sin. And like I said, as a pastor, I don't have to be impartial. I get to go for what I think is important, and I think it's hugely important that humans not think that they're born flawed, right?
Right.
We're in God's image. That's.
So whether you were raised Catholic, you got a lot more of that than me and the Protestant half of things.
Yes, I did get a lot of that.
Yeah. So she does mention the garden. We don't really get a good explanation on if she and Adam we're the only two people, or if they're just like the only two people that formed one group of humanity, because it seemed to be hard to buy into the fact that only a couple thousand years ago there would have only been two people, and that's the world that Chloe and Lucifer and all these people are inhabiting. So we don't really know about that, but apparently they did meet there, because she does say that no one ever asked her if she wanted to be Adam's wife. She just got made to be Adam's wife, and the first person who ever asked her what she wanted was Lucifer. So we mentioned that in the consent episode. So, even back then, apparently he did see her as a person apart from Adam, and someone who might have her own goals and her own ambitions. But now she's kind of fallen into this thing where she's now going back and being self-destructive, right? She's trying to be the best girlfriend she can be, right? Until she finally realizes that trying to change herself to be what she thinks Lucifer wants isn't going to work. And then she walks off saying, I have to basically find myself and put up some boundaries and figure out what I want. And then we see her walk off.
It is interesting, because the consent thing is really kind of important. Lucifer has developed this ethos of consent, but God doesn't. Although, free will is discussed a little bit in here, but it's funny how God, sometimes we have free will and sometimes we don't, according to their narrative here. So that is an interesting thing. I also think it's interesting just that she gets to walk around in an uncorrupt body, so her body's okay after all these millennia of not being on Earth. Yeah.
Yeah, they do give sort of a glib explanation for her. She's the only person who wasn't only woman who wasn't born, and she was just created. So she feels like leaving heaven. She can walk out and go back to her old bones, which she does. And then somehow she manages to not only crawl out of her grave, but I guess she's been learning modern languages while she's been in heaven. So she, and she manages to get something to wear, and she somehow manages to meet the right people to get a plane ride, to LA. And so she's resourceful. And apparently she's going to continue to be that way, because she just sort of walks off. And so it's like she's got the dress on her back, and that's about it. And she's just going to go off and figure herself out with no way to support herself or anything. She's just going to wander off.
It's surprising to me, too, how important Cain is in so many episodes, and that they really don't do much between them. I just thought that was...
Yeah, we just get the throwaway line where M.Div says, "But he killed your son Cain," and she's like, "Well, Cain probably deserved it." And you're like, "Really?" And she's like, "And my sweet Abel," and you're like, "He was a real big jerk when we saw Abel." So
right. And Cain's the one you're sympathetic toward, right?
Eventually, I guess when he starts trying to kill Chloe, we're not very sympathetic. But
yeah,
her assessment of her kids, even, it seems to be backwards from what we've seen of them, right? She thinks the sweet one is one we saw as a jerk, and that the one who deserved to die is the one who had more, we spoke before he turned evil, had
isn't
some
that most mothers, though? Most mothers are like that, right?
You see the opposite?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're good, I think you're bad. Okay.
I think that's a common. I won't say most, but I think that's not that's not uncommon for mothers to not have the most objective view of their child.
True. So yeah, she does kind of brush off the murder, especially since it happened at Lucifer's hands. Lucifer killed your kid, and she's kind of like, eh. But I guess she's got an agenda, and it doesn't really include her children, I suppose. I don't know.
Abel was such a shit too, I just really like it. It is funny what they choose to do. It makes sense if you're going to write something and make it interesting, but then you have to deal with that, right? We're holding them accountable for 4 seasons of episodes, including that one never-ending season. Was that the 3rd season? The one that never ended. And I'll give them leeway that you can't be perfectly consistent, right?
Right, but sometimes it seems like when you have a TV show, you have to have what they call a Bible, and that's because you have a different person writing a bunch of episodes. So you might have a stable of 10 or 12 writers, and you want them to be relatively consistent. So you have things for them to refer to. This character is like this, and these are the rules that we can't break or whatever. But it feels like sometimes they haven't really figured all that out. And we discussed that with the How Do You Get Into Hell episode that we did earlier, and like what happens to you in hell seems to change. So some things they don't seem to have really kind of gotten a real solid grip on themselves.
Yeah, even that explanation of how she has her body, it's like, yeah.
Okay.
Not the greatest explanation.
She managed to possess her own bones again. All right.
Yeah.
But I mean, I really did like her. I did see a review of the 4th season where they were really hoping that Lucifer ends up with her and not Chloe at the end of all these seasons, because they thought that the chemistry between the actors worked better, between Inbar Labi and Tom Ellis rather than Lauren German. But we haven't invested 4 seasons in Eve, basically, to see her end up with Lucifer. So I don't know that we see that happening. But
well, and there's still the whole prophecy thing with Chloe, or I mean, I don't know what to call it, and I still don't understand it.
Right.
So I think they've invested in that too much to throw that away at this point.
Right, and they keep, at least Lucifer and the others really seem to assume that God did that to like trip Lucifer up, and maybe he did. But you could also interpret it that God really wants Lucifer dead, right? Because this makes Lucifer vulnerable, so as long as Chloe's around, someone could shoot it, right? Or, whatever. So if God wants Lucifer dead and doesn't want his own hands dirty, he just has Chloe be born, and then some assassin comes along when Chloe happens to be in the area. I mean, that's what happened at the end of season 2, where he gets clobbered by Cain's henchmen and dumped out in the desert and then sprouts wings. It's because she's nearby that Cain's already figured that out, and as his henchmen go get Lucifer when Chloe's in the vicinity, specifically. So, that other people can use that against him, and it could be fatal.
Yeah. The only other thing I guess I could say about Eve with all this is she's not like a strong woman character, right? And she does kind of play into, I mean, she does have some discoveries toward the end, but you kind of would hope if you're going to anthropomorphize the mother of all humanity, that you would somehow make her out to be some kind of a really strong woman. So, and I think maybe they missed an opportunity here. I think she would have been more interesting than those episodes that bored me where she was just compliant and trying to please him.
Right.
She would have really been doing something.
Yeah, I think they wanted to show that, she ends up being codependent or something, that she, is trying to figure out how to be a good girlfriend without, and sacrificing her own personal mental health, I guess, which obviously self-destructive behavior. And then she's going to have to figure out that she's not in a healthy relationship, and if she wants to figure out relationships, she has to go off and figure this out somewhere else. But it did make some of those episodes in the middle of season 10 kind of dull. I agree with you there, that she would have been more interesting if she had been less just kind of whining and chasing Lucifer around.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so any other thoughts on Eve and season 4?
The whole thing is interesting, like Eve but not Adam, we saw Cain and Abel, and as I mentioned before, no Lilith yet, so which surprises me with the occult characters they deal with here. But I guess I don't like her as much as I liked Mom. I had a lot more fun with Mom.
Mind of her own.
Yeah.
And definitely had certain things she wanted to do, although she sometimes didn't really seem to understand as much as she should have if she actually created a lot of stuff.
And kind of like the father's depicted, not so good at consent, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for joining me again for this episode. Remember, if you enjoyed it, hit like and subscribe, and maybe hit that bell notification so you'll know when I upload some more videos. And we appreciate you watching. Thanks very much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.